You scroll, compare, and doubt. What if that inner voice isn't your own? For 600 years, Nag Hammadi hid what Valentinus and Marcion dared to reveal: the demiurge's script shaping reality, and the guardian within waiting to wake. If you uncover this, the spell breaks. Are you ready to remember? Ancient truth shatters all modern illusions. You scroll, you compare, you doubt, and you ask yourself why the voice in your head suddenly sounds like an app writing your script. That whisper, that hollow nudge, is the alarm you learned to name in the last section. Now you discover where some early thinkers said that alarm really comes from. What Valentinus and Marcion call the authors of normal aren't mythical villains. They're ideas about who wrote the world you think is real. Today you'll see that claim plain, and why it matters to how you make choices. The main idea is simple: some early Gnostic teachers say the visible world has an author who isn't the true source of life. Think of it like this: you're watching a movie, but someone else wrote the screenplay and keeps editing your lines. Valentinus tells a story where secret teachings, passed down through a select chain that he links back to Paul, explain that the God most people worship is only an image, a local director, not the ultimate creator. Marcion goes further and treats the creator of the visible law as something separate from the higher loving God. These aren't just abstract claims. Pieces of their work survive in the Gospel of Truth and other texts found at Nag Hammadi in 1945, showing a two-track view: the outer story that keeps people busy, and an inner truth meant to wake them up. Over 20 years, these ideas were hidden, argued over, and sometimes erased. But the core point stays clear: there is a manufactured normal that edits what you think is natural. Here, what this means for you right now. When you feel something is off, that little voice that tells you to buy, to compare, to shrink, you're feeling the edit. You begin to see that not every impulse is yours. Think of your attention like a battery. When you feed every comparison and fear, someone else drains your power and directs it. You feel it as restless scrolling, constant doubt, or a nagging ache that happiness is always out of reach. You recognize the pattern: you chase validation, you follow trends, you make choices that fit the script, and you wonder why they never satisfy. This is where Valentinus's secret wisdom becomes practical. Naming the feeling, "This is an edit, not a desire," is the first move to stop acting on planted impulses. You realize you can pause, refuse the automatic reply, and choose differently. If you don't name it, the script keeps running and your days keep aligning with someone else's goals. You begin to see the stakes. Knowing lets you reclaim your attention, not knowing keeps you living by an invisible program. You recognize the pattern, you start to test the voice, and you discover room to change your story. Next, we will identify the exact forces and mechanisms Valentinus and Marcion say write those edits, the names, the roles, and how they shape what you call normal. They told you the story of Christianity was tidy, written once, and settled for 20 years. But what if that neat story is what was made to look true? What you're about to hear is the paper trail of a quieter war. Bishops like Irenaeus and Tertullian hunting down rival teachers, a rebel like Marcion trying to reorder scripture. And then in 1945, a farmer's find at Nag Hammadi that cracks the lid off a hidden library. You discover a world where texts were fought over, burned, quoted, and sometimes preserved by the very people who wanted them gone. By the end of this section, you realize how much of the story was decided by power, not purity. Think of the early church like a crowded library where some books are loudly promoted and others quietly boxed up. One main idea: authority chooses the shelf. Bishops such as Irenaeus write to destroy what they call heretical books and ideas. He names Valentinus and attacks secret teachings. Tertullian does the same. Their writings become the evidence we have of what they opposed. Meanwhile, Valentinus and his followers claim a different map: secret, inward knowledge texts like the Gospel of Truth or the Gospel of Philip that treat Jesus as revealer of inner mystery. Then you have Marcion, who in the mid-2nd century cuts a Bible to fit his vision, rejecting the Jewish God and building a lean canon. These fights aren't abstract, they are fights over which books sit on which shelf. Now picture those disappeared books as shredded letters. Scholars reconstruct them from quotes, refutations, and the occasional rescue. Marcion survives in the record because his enemies quote him so often. Their rage becomes our trace. Valentinian thought shows up again, when in 1945 a sealed jar at Nag Hammadi yields the Apocryphon of John and other texts. Suddenly, the whispers become readable. You begin to see how a secret teaching that bishops called dangerous actually persisted through fragments, reworkings, and recovered gospels. This is why historians can rebuild a map. The attacks left footprints, and the buried library left the originals. This matters for you now. Here, what this means: the beliefs you accept as canonical were often chosen in political fights about unity, rituals, and who controls meaning. When a bishop defines orthodoxy, they secure sacramental power and cultural order, and that shapes what you're told is sacred, moral, or true. You feel it in how some voices get amplified and others are sidelined. You recognize similar moves today when institutions set the menu of acceptable opinions and label the rest fringe. If you care about what you believe you discover, you must check the provenance. Who profited from making a text or idea invisible? History is set. You've seen the archive and the ambush. You feel the paper trail under your fingers. Now we shift from recovered scrolls to your daily life, to measure what being cut off from these alternate maps costs you right now, and how the hidden choices of bishops 2 millennia ago still steer your map today. What if the tiny repeat moments of your day are the real battleground? You scroll for 5 minutes and hours vanish. You polish a to-do list to look holy while your heart goes numb. You buy things that promise a new you, then wake up the same. In the last section, we name the archons and the demiurge. As the story builders, here you map what that story actually costs you, inhabits feelings, and who you think you are. In fact, teachings hidden by Valentinus and others for nearly 20 years point to exactly this. Attention is the currency, and your routines are the tax. Think of it like a bank account. Every habit deposits or withdraws energy. Doom scrolling is like handing your money to a mimic who copies your anger and fear back at you, an archonic imitation that learns you and then uses you. Performative productivity acts like a ledger enforced by the demiurge rules, and visible outputs become proof you're good, while your inner life gets audited and erased. Impulse buying and identity tribalism are story locks. They turn your attention into repetitive withdrawals for narratives that flatten you. This is not poetic, it's practical. Valentinus's circle taught that a false creator makes laws to keep people busy with appearances, and Marcion's critics argued the same split between law and spirit. The Nag Hammadi texts found in 1945 preserve these warnings in plain myth and image, ancient maps for a modern economy of energy. Here, what this means for you right now. You discover a pattern in everyday choices: the quick dopamine of endless feeds, the brittle pride of public productivity, the relief of a purchase that lasts 48 hours. You begin to see how fatigue is not just tired muscles but depleted attention. You realize reactive fear shows up as constant checking, snapping at loved ones, or freeze and scroll when you should act. You feel your agency slipping when choices feel automatic. You recognize the voice that says, just one more, and you know it isn't you fully speaking. The concrete costs are lost time, chronic low-grade anxiety, and a thinner sense of self. The gain of remembering the inner spark these teachers protected is different, steadier focus, deeper curiosity, and a felt center that doesn't need applause. You notice small wins: one silent morning instead of scrolling, one task done without broadcasting it, one boundary that keeps your attention in your account. This reframing turns routines into energy ledgers you can read. Start asking, who benefits when I click buy or perform? What story am I feeding? When you practice noticing, you reclaim little deposits of power. You break the mimicry and stop being harvested. You remember the spark Valentinus and the Gnostics wrote about, a seed the archons can't touch if you stop feeding the noise. Having named the stakes and the real cost to your habits, emotions, and identity, you're ready for a practical, ancient-inspired method you can try today. A short practice to withdraw your energy from the story and return it home. In the next section, you learn that practice and how to make it part of your day. What if the God you think runs the show is actually a bureaucrat, a copy that keeps you busy while the real source stays hidden? For 20 years, ancient seekers called this trick the demiurge. You're about to meet the demiurge, the ignorant lawgiver, and the archons, his middle managers, as Valentinus tells Sophia's mistake, and as Marcion splits the world in two, a just God who enforces law versus a good God beyond law. What you'll discover is how control works not by brute force, but by imitation, legalism, and story locks that keep you cycling. The core idea is simple and real for you. A fake creator makes rules and hires imitators to enforce them. Picture it like a corporate app ecosystem. The demiurge is the CEO who can't invent truth, but copies it badly. The archons are the apps that mimic the CEO's voice and harvest your attention. You feel the CEO's rules as guilt duty, and ritual. The apps keep you scrolling in loops. Here, as the personal angle, you recognize the pattern because you've seen it in your own life. Brands that copy authenticity, platforms that clone outrage, institutions that preach law as a substitute for meaning. Ancient texts back this up. Valentinus and his circle describe a pleroma of fullness interrupted by Sophia's error that births a false creator, and Nag Hammadi manuscripts like the Gospel of Truth expose a world trapped in ignorance. Marcion 2,000 years ago split the scriptures to press the same point: one God of law, one God of mercy, making control a theological split you can feel when you read. This matters every day. You begin to see how imitation loops show up as influencer trends, how legalism shows up as rule-first morality that shames rather than heals, and how narrative capture locks attention into stories that never let you ask bigger questions. When you feel sudden guilt for wanting something or an urge to perform to belong, you're sensing archonic tactics. They don't have to hurt you, they just need your energy. If you don't notice, you keep feeding the loop: more consumption, more comparison, more guilt. If you do notice, you can pull back your attention and stop being guided by copied voices. You discover that freedom starts with naming the mechanism: imitation, legalism, and story lock. You realize you can break free by shifting your focus toward what truly matters. With that model clear, you see these aren't just myths pinned in a cave. They were buried, contested, and resurrected in real fights over scripture and power. For today, we trace those battles, from Valentinus's secret teachings to Marcion's radical edits to the 1945 Nag Hammadi find that brings these buried voices back. So you can see how the control system moved from old temples into your feed today. Ancient wisdom teaches that the archons survive by keeping you distracted, but you can choose a different path. The next step is a practical method to reclaim your mind, protect your energy, and reconnect with the source the archons cannot touch. If you'd like to go even deeper, I've created a free ebook called Escaping the Illusion: A Gnostic Guide to Mastering Reality. It explores these ideas further and gives you practical tools for breaking free from iconic influence. You'll find the link in the description. Hidden in scrolls and whispers, the Gnostics left warnings: the archons don't rule you with chains. They rule you with forgetfulness, with the stories you were given, with the thoughts you never questioned. But today something shifts because you've seen the game. The invisible prison only works if you believe in it, and every moment you return to your awareness, the bars begin to dissolve. They told you freedom is your birthright, but what if the script that runs your attention was written elsewhere? You realize the last section traced Valentinus and Marcion rewriting the story of God. Now you learn the practical counter, a 5-step liberation method you can use today. You discover it, you practice it, and slowly the invisible tug on your focus loosens. This is not theory. It's a daily protocol drawn from the same Gnostic insight that hid teachings in Nag Hammadi for over 1600 years. You realize this is abstract, you feel it in your everyday life. The ping that pulls your eyes from the page, the scroll that eats your morning, the fear voice nudging you into buying or arguing. The main idea is simple: attention is the battlefield. Think of your focus like a lamp. If something keeps moving the lamp, the room never gets illuminated properly. You see how complex talk collapses into clarity when you treat attention as an energy source. Think of algorithms, guilt, and old stories as hands trying to tilt your lamp away from source. In modern life, that looks like endless notifications, habit loops, or should voices that make you act out of fear. The Gnostics, Valentinus among them, taught that secret teachings were about reclaiming an inner light, not obeying outer scripts. Here's the analogy: your attention is food. If you feed distractions, they grow. If you withhold your gaze, the script starves. You begin to notice how easily a 5-minute scroll becomes 50. You understand why Marcion and others insisted on initiation. It's training to direct your lamp. Here, that's what this means for you right now. Start with witness and name. When a thought snaps at you, stop for 3 seconds and say the thought's name. Guilt, panic, comparison. Label it without fighting it. You realize you are not the thought, you're the watcher. Next, attention fasting. Pick a daily 60-minute block where you turn off algorithmic cues. No feed, no headlines, no alerts. You discover you regain a quiet you didn't know you could reclaim. Law to love swap replaces I must with I choose. You rewrite one small obligation into a chosen commitment this week. Mythic reframe asks you to retell your day as the guardian, not the ruler. You write 2 sentences about how your inner guardian protected your attention. Seal your energy closes the loop. 3 slow breaths straighten your spine. And say a short mantra like I return my light to mark the end of a session. You will feel small, immediate wins, calmer mornings, fewer hijacked moods, and larger shifts over 2 weeks as the lamp stays steady. If you ignore this, you keep feeding the scripts that have for 20 years or more shaped mass belief and habit. You begin to see changes: less reactivity, more choice. You discover how ancient teachers taught initiation as practice, not mystery. You transcend the passive role of consumer and remember yourself as source. For 20 years, ancient texts reveal a map. You don't have to fight the noise to win. You can withdraw your energy from the illusion that feeds it. This leads to a deeper question: who are you when the noise fades? In the next section, you'll see exactly what transforms in your brain, how to stabilize these gains, and how to engage the world without giving your energy away. You'll get tools to lock in the change and take it beyond this video. For today, you can begin. The moment you pause, label, choose, guard, you start reclaiming your light. And the more you remember, the more the invisible prison begins to crumble. What if the quiet you keep chasing is already starting to show up? You notice it first as small gaps between the noise, a calmer thought, a compulsive habit that no longer grips you. In the last section, we trace the myths. Now you see the first signs of real freedom. You realize this loosening isn't vague or mystical. It's measurable. For about 20 years, fragments like Nag Hammadi and Valentinus, Gospel of Truth, hit a map for this change. Today you'll learn what that map looks like and how to hold it. The main idea is simple: control loosens when your attention stops being eaten. Think of your mind like a radio. Right now, static plays under your shows. As you turn the dial away from noise, the signal gets clearer. You begin to have a quieter mind, fewer compulsions, and a stronger power to choose. The Gnostics knew this long before us. Nag Hammadi texts show that inner knowing matters more than rules handed down from outside. Ancient wisdom teaches that the path to freedom is not outer rebellion, but inner clarity. Marcion pushed a radical split between law and the good, forcing people to decide by inner sense, not just scripture. This history shows a pattern: when people reclaim attention, they stop being driven by reflex and start choosing on purpose. This is why the ancients hid teachings, so those who remember can live by direct knowing. This means for you a few simple practices that anchor the change. Track reclaim time. Note even 10 minutes you didn't spend scrolling and treat it like currency. Curate inputs. Unsubscribe, mute, close tabs that drag your attention. Build community. Find or start a small group that reads one Valentinian text or discusses Marcion's challenge and prizes direct experience over parroting belief. Practical example: for 7 days, record where your attention goes. Take 20 minutes of morning silence and make one deliberate choice each day instead of following habit. You will feel fewer urges, notice a calm center, and have extra attention to pour into work, love, or service. That surplus is not just free time. It's moral energy you can use for the good beyond the law, helping, creating, repairing without needing permission. If you don't start, those old reflexes stay crowded in your brain. You stay small inside a loud world. But once you begin, you discover you are bigger than the noise, and your choices carry real weight. Now move from watching to doing. Commit to the 7-day protocol. Track time, curate inputs, sit in silence, join, or start a remembering circle and report what changes. You can post your starting practice, invite a friend, and share your results so we can seed a network that remembers together. For 20 years, these ideas stood hidden. Today you can claim them. The ancient texts reveal that your attention is the doorway. Modern science confirms that training your focus reshapes where you put your energy. Subscribe for deeper dives into Valentinian and Marcion's legacies, and keep the momentum. This week you begin, and you'll feel the timeline reshaping as you choose differently.